Welcome to martialartsnow.com. I am Pedro Bennett, the founder of martialartsnow.com, and today's date is December the 23rd, 2015. And today we have a special guest, and our guest is Grandmaster Donnie Williams. Welcome, Grandmaster Williams.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to be here.
I'd like to thank you for agreeing to be interviewed. You have displayed your skills and have shown passion for the martial arts. You are indeed a pioneer and a promoter of goodwill.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, martialartsnow.com, and I'm sure our audience as well, is excited and have an opportunity to hear about your experiences. So if you don't mind, let's get started.
You got it. Go ahead, sir.
If you would, tell us about your training and martial art experience. Who are you?
Well, first of all, I want to say I thank you for just the privilege of being able to share my thoughts and my feelings and my experience in my life with you. That's number one. Number two, I am a practitioner. I practice the art. Many people learn and they are beyond, but I practice martial arts. And the reason I use the term practice because I have not mastered it in reality. I'm learning how to become that master. One master oneself, then they master what they possess. So my desire is to become a master in life. The arts have been a part of my life for about 48, almost 50 years. And I've been Kempo with Steve Muhammad, which is one of the greatest martial artists ever lived, period. I've also practiced Taekwondo with Master Yu, which I believe is also numbered among the best in his art. So I've been in martial arts for a while, and who I am at this moment, one that is practicing living a Christian lifestyle as a Christian. So that's who I am at this moment. But the martial arts have helped me and directed me to be the person that I am. First, it was the military that helped me with my discipline, and second was the art that helped me with my discipline, and now it's the church that is fine-tuning my discipline. In the church. They don't call it discipline, they call it a disciple. So that's who I am at this moment.
Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you being so honest. So you have been in a few major productions, which you didn't share at this time, but you have been in a few movie productions and you have published a few books. And in fact, you recently published a new one, if I'm not mistaken. Please share with the audience the movies you have been involved with, or in what books have you published or co-published?
Well, when it comes to the movies, I've been involved with 17 motion pictures. 90% of them are martial art films. For an example, Circle of Iron with David Carradine, The Big Brawl with Jackie Chan. I did 2 films with Chuck Norris. One is Breaker Breaker, and the other one is Force of One. Tadashi Yamashita, I did 2 films with him in Japan. To Live and Die in L.A., I worked on that film. Killer Elite, worked on that film. I also choreographed some fight scenes and worked with Clint Eastwood, not what I call screen credits, but I worked with him on some scenes we kind of worked out together with. But I've been involved with quite a few. In fact, I just finished last month a project, Master P Empire, which is a rapper, Percy Miller, which is his legal name. He's a rapper. I did an episode in his Master P Empire reality movie that's on Reels, which is REELZ, I think it's called, on the cable. But anyway, that's what I just finished. When it comes to film, I've been involved in 17 of them, and I've been blessed to do that. Secondly, books I have co-published now on my 7th book. The first one we ever did was Championship Kempo with Steve Muhammad and myself. And since that, we've done many, many books. The latest one, the book that I just finished, and I'm waiting to actually get it out. It's called The Return of the Masters. And The Return of the Masters is about the BKF 5 masters that got together about a year ago, and the discussion that they had. We have a DVD of it, but I'm also putting out a book about it. So, but we have 5 books in between all of that we have published, and you can pick them up on Amazon.com or the books, the publishing company themselves. But they're out there, so I have to be asked specific books because I don't remember all of them. The Journey that Tom Bleecker put out, My Life Story, which is a book that they're in the process now. Hopefully, going to end up doing a movie, but that's, everybody's talking about it, but nothing is really happening there. But Conquest Over Hatred, that book also can be picked up online. So I have quite a few things happening when it comes to publication. I'm doing some projects myself too. So that's where I am on the books.
Excellent. If you don't mind, what I would do is I would try to make a link to either your webpage or to Amazon, so that if anyone's interested in your book, they have an opportunity to purchase your book through Amazon.com.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
No problem. You've been very, very active involved. I mean, publishing the books and the movies. I think that's excellent. And you sort of mentioned Soji Steve Muhammad, which I think I also echoed. I think he's a wonderful man. In fact, he was the last Grandmaster that I interviewed just a few weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
And Senso, you also mentioned the BKF. You were one of the founders of BKF. If you would, please tell us about the organization.
Well, the BKF truly is a blessing to not only blacks, but to the art itself. The Black Karate Federation is not a racist organization. There are non-blacks that are in the organization as well. But it was designed to be a place where blacks could get represented, even though they were not in a major school or with a major system. They can still be represented. The reason it got started originally was we went to tournaments, and black kids who did not have representation was not treated fairly. They were treated really bad and disrespected because they didn't have a major instructor or a major organization supporting them. So they just got treated bad. So we noticed that. And when I say we, I'm talking about basically Steve Muhammad noticed that. So he had kids that he was training in the park, and those kids didn't have a school, so he just trained them. And when they go to tournaments, they'll say, well, my instructor is Steve Sanders. Well, not too many people really knew Steve Sanders back in the 1966 and 67. They didn't know him that well. And so in 68, basically we formed, and when I use the word we again, we're talking about Cliff Stewart, we're talking about Ron Chappelle, and Jerry Smith, and myself, and Steve Sanders. So we just came together, and we wanted to open a school. And so the school basically, I mean, it's the history. We got a book out called Techniques and Strategies on BKF and the History. So it tells all of that in that book through unique publications. But in the meanwhile, we started the organization so that we can represent. We went to tournaments and we began to represent, because now every black child had an organization, which was the BKF. And from that, everybody began to recognize that we was doing something great. We wasn't the Black Panthers or anything negative. We was a positive group that went out to help kids and represent them in a manner that would be accepted. So that's the way it sort of developed itself in 1968 and 69. In fact, we became so popular in 1970, they came to us to get Muhammad at that time to be in a movie called Enter the Dragon. But at the time, Muhammad was not he was not a part of the Screen Actors Guild, and we had a school at that moment on Western and 103rd. We had just located to that place for the school, coming from a place called Sheenway on Broadway in Central. So anyway, they came to us to talk to Muhammad about it, but he wasn't in the Screen Actors Guild, and in the process, Jim Kelly got the part that they were interested in him because Jim Kelly, number one, had a very pleasant appearance, and Jim Kelly had also a Screen Actors Guild card. So we did that film, I think it was in 71 or 70 or 71, somewhere thereabout. And the big BKF emblem was on the wall. And we left. When that film came out, I became a very big star. I was in that movie for 3.2 seconds. And at 3.2 seconds, everybody knew who I was. And Muhammad, he did a complete 10 seconds in the movie. So we was big stars. We just starred in Enter the Dragon. Well, to us, it was like being a star. But the point is, I'm being humorous in my statement. But the point being, Enter the Dragon really boosted the BKF. And we became one of the leading systems, the best champion. We built more champions than any other organization in the world. The Kempo, Hapkido, no other school have as many champions as the BKF had.
That was wonderful. I mean, really, and that's pretty much what Soji Steve Muhammad had shared. And it's good to hear that you were echoing the same thing. Of course, it's the truth. But I really want to congratulate you and thank you for paving the way. As I said before, you as well as Soji Muhammad is indeed pioneers. You know, I'm in my mid-50s, and I was exposed to racism and constantly. I mean, if you live in America, you are still going to be exposed to racism. Now, let's get back in the 60s and 70s. I was a kid at the time in the 60s. So, yes, I was exposed to blacks had to go over here to drink water, had to sit at the back of the bus, the separation of schools, etc. But I was nowhere exposed to what you and Soji Steve Muhammad was exposed to. If you would tell us, how bad was it back in the 60s and 70s as it relates to you as a martial artist? What were some of the major issues that you were facing as a martial artist and as a U.S. citizen?
Well, that's a soapbox that I'm always hopping on and hopping off. But when I use that term, referring to my book, Conquest Over Hatred, tells my story in the 60s. Racism was a way of life. It was not just hate because I didn't like white people. It was a way of life. White people treated me really bad. I lived in Savannah, Georgia in the Jim Crow era. And black people walked on the street, and if a white group came out, we would walk not on the sidewalk, but we would stand against a building or anything where they can pass or something. And that we thought that was being courteous. We didn't realize it was being racist. We just thought we were just nice black people. We wouldn't go into areas where white people was eating, and because they didn't want us to be there, and we thought by not going that we didn't want to be with them. Not that they were just being evil and mean. We just thought they were just didn't want us there, and we didn't want to be there. So therefore, we open our own restaurants. But in the meanwhile, it was very difficult for me because I had a dislike, a bitter taste in my mouth for white people. And it wasn't something that my parents, my mother taught me. It was something I picked up as I grew. And it was important to me, for me, to learn the art so that I can avoid getting beat up and hurt. So in the 60s, I wasn't training in the 60s, but as a child growing up, I just knew that I was being treated bad and I couldn't do anything about it at that moment. So the 60s was a very bad time for blacks. And it has changed, but it's still got a long ways to go. But yeah, we still got issues today, but the 60s was really, really bad.
Right, right. And I'm going to tell you, even in the education arena, I'm constantly seeing the biases. And of course, I tell people we're innately biased, but we're talking about racism versus being biased. I mean, biases we could handle through being empathetic to each other, but racism is a total different monster. But regardless of that, it is. And in fact, I was sharing with just someone last week is that until we have a true dialogue, a real dialogue, not a superficial dialogue, but a true dialogue about race, we will not resolve the issue. And I was sharing with a couple, in fact, one of my students in my class, martial arts class, is that I say we got to look at, as Black Americans, we got to look at our focus. We look at approximately, let's say, if 400 African Americans or Black Americans have been killed by the police a year, I think that's a problem. Actually, that's the issue. But the greater problem is when you have thousands and thousands of Black on Black crime, occurring. This is when there should be a total community getting together saying, hey, what can we do? Because we're losing thousands of lives. And we're not talking about just 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000. We're talking about thousands of lives a year. This is what we really need to look at and figure out. What can we do? In fact, this is one of the premise of martial arts now, is to contact people like you and Soji Steve Muhammad and Hunchi Nima Hassan and many, many other individuals I've interviewed, and try to figure out what can we do to help out. And tournaments are great and other things, but how can we change the mindset? And actually, we're becoming educated by experiences that you are sharing, believe it or not, that it will help us out in the long run. So thank you again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, but let me just a quick comment on that. I think what we can do in the three categories. Category one, what we can do as Black Americans, we can learn to acknowledge the problem and not just let it go by. And one of the things that we do not do, we don't acknowledge. We just now beginning to make a little noise, like they got the march when the kids got shot. The black guys, the black boys got shot. I was a cop for 22 years. I just retired 3 years ago from the Monrovia Police Department, from the reserve, and a chaplain being with Monrovia PD. And so I know there are bad cops, and I know there are great cops. But we have to start acknowledging what is going on. The second thing I think we can do to make a change is we have to accept the fact that everybody is not going to agree with us. And since it's nothing to argue and fuss about, it's just that they're not going to, they want to be right. So let them be their right and not want to fight over what someone believes, what someone believes or something. Just accept the fact everybody's not going to agree with us. And the last thing that we can do is train up our youth. The people like you who are in the educational field and trying to expose our kids so they can be a little more articulate in speech. I'm not an educator, neither do I speak with perfect English or grammar, but people like you can help our kids feel good about themselves, make them aware that education is necessary. It's not necessary to make money. It is necessary to be a great person. And so I think that's number one. Number three, educating our youth, being there, being mentors, not charging them for everything we teach them. And when I was a karate student with Steve Muhammad, I never paid him a dime for lessons. Young you, I never paid him a dime for lessons. And I left them in my age now, almost 70 years old. I'm in excellent condition, 240 pounds, 6 feet, almost 6'1". God has been good to me. So I'm training up kids. I have my little gang I call kids at my church that I'm working with. But yeah, that's what we can do. We can make a difference. We made a difference with the DKF, and now we're going to make a difference with my ICKA, which is the Christian Karate Association. We're making a difference, and you do that by acknowledging what is going on and speaking up about it, but most of all, being an example or a mentor to some of these young kids.
Well, you get an amen from me on that, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And well put. And it was indeed needed to be presented. And again, yes, I want to thank you for serving in law enforcement. As Soldier Steve Muhammad served, I think it was 28 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, and I served 6 or 7 years before I left law enforcement. So I think it's great that you did the service there, and you have exposure that most people haven't, because you had an opportunity to see really not just what you see on the news, but why did it get on the news, and what some of the true issues. And that's why I think it's important for not just me, but other people to have that dialogue with you to really see what's going on versus hearsay, so they can really tap into your knowledge. Yes,
sir.
Tell me something. How has your method of training in Kempo changed over the years?
Oh boy, it has changed. Number one, and again, I don't want to make this a Steve Muhammad society of where I'm always just speaking about him, but I only have him as an example. He was a mentor to me, so I can only use him as an example. But Kempo, back in the 70s and the 80s, Kempo was a system, a style that Muhammad taught, but that was not the fighting techniques. Muhammad developed his own fighting techniques. He used the Kempo basic training, but he developed his own actual operation of the moves. We had things like brain sight. We had things like we would do techniques, parting wings, and these techniques was the basics of Kempo, but he would take those and he would do over and under, which didn't have a martial art name, just a movement. And Kempo have changed greatly. You go to a tournament today, you wear pads and protective gear and so on. I understand the insurance and the lawsuits issues. I do understand that, because not everybody want to play the game fairly, so they'll end up doing something wrong. But that is not martial arts. To me, martial arts is when you use your common hand, your common feet, and everything is just natural, and you learn takedowns and throws and so on, and you don't have a pad when you're walking down the sidewalk. If somebody trip you, you fall on the cement, so you have to learn how to roll and fall. You don't have a protective gear in your groin, so you have to learn how to block your groin. If you don't learn how to block, you will learn how to breathe all over again. So it's important to protect yourself. But today it's not that same. It's just flashy moves, and it works. It's good. It's good. And the reason I say it's good today, because if I teach you how to operate a Coca-Cola bottle and a broomstick, if I practice with you enough, you become good at it. So Kempo is a good art. Taekwondo is a good art, but it's not like it used to be. So, and I don't mean it in the negative sense. In some cases it's better. The knowledge is greater, but fighting today, like Muhammad called it, he don't call it art. He called it science. I call it art and science.
Right.
Because it's both. It's not one. It's not just science and it's not just art. It is both. It's art and science. So it has changed quite a bit.
Yes, I agree. In fact, what I do is when I teach Venn Kempo Jiu-Jitsu, my system, I call it Venn Kempo Jiu-Jitsu methods. And Venn is I get Venn from the Venn diagram, which is compare and contrast. And the method is we're looking at the arts, we're looking at the science. Nevertheless, that's one of the reasons why I use method. But regardless of that, you mentioned that you were, if I'm not mistaken, 6'1", 240 pounds. And I look at alternate martial artists or martial sciences when they get older, how they happen to lose control of their weight control, and yet still they're teaching the arts. And again, going back to Soji Steve Muhammad, he's, if I'm not mistaken, 77 years old, and he's approximately 145 pounds, and he can still kick butt and take names, so so I think it's great that you are, and Soji Steve Muhammad and a few others are, even Grandmaster McKetty I interviewed, and a few other, Nima Hassan, they are well fit. I think Nima Hassan, he's still in his, he was, even when in his 60s, we go out and run a couple miles. He's in Philadelphia, we still go run a couple miles, and he does a very good job. And it's good to see individuals, masters, instructors who've been training for 30, 40, 50 years, still on the mat training and showing them how it is done. And I want to say you guys are true instructor. In fact, I just spoke with a knife coach, Keating, and he's still in very good shape. And it's good to see that, because it inspires me, as a young man in his 50s to continue to again to grow and to learn. So again, I want to thank you for that. And
yeah, well, excuse me, I just want to say, interject that even right after this interview, I'm going to take a picture of myself and send it to you, so you see exactly me today, right now, what I look like. I'm going to do it on my phone and send it to you. But let me just say, I cannot run 5 miles, okay?
Yes.
And like I tell my students, and any of them, it doesn't really matter. And that is, if you and I have an altercation and you pass 35 seconds with me, you should win, because something I'm doing wrong. Because I know after a minute, you might be able to deal with me. But the first 35 seconds, you had a serious problem. You got a serious battle on your hands. So I'm not sitting here telling you that I can run 5 miles and do 100 jumping jacks. No. What I can do, I can do 100 jumping jacks. Yes, I can do 50 push-ups. Well, 35 push-ups. Let's go to 50. I'm sure I can do 50. But anyway, the point being is that I'm in good shape for a man that's almost 70 years old.
Yes.
So that's the condition I was trying to set up.
Yes. And Soji Muhammad mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, he said 5 seconds. I think he mentioned you engage for maybe 5 seconds, and then you disengage, or if you need to. If I'm not mistaken, it may have been a conversation I may have had another Grandmaster, but I'm thinking Soji Muhammad shared that with me. And it's good that you are staying in shape. And then too, a lot of times, you don't need to run. Like I said, you don't need to run 5 miles or whatever. In fact, I only run like a mile or mile and a half. I don't even run farther than 2 miles if because there's no need to.
Someone stole if someone stole my Bentley, I think I'd probably run 5 miles and chase them. But I got to have a great reason. It got to be a great reason.
You got that right, man. You got that right. You are a Christian, and what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you?
Well, Christianity is very similar to martial arts in this manner. It is something I practice. I have not perfected. I'm practicing it. My Christianity, I don't want to preach, but I just want to share this a little bit. In Christianity, Matthew's tell us also in many books, but let me quote this particular verse. It says, "If any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. Old things have passed away, and all things become new." So what happened is that key word is become new. All things become, not that you are developing daily as God reveal himself to you, and you reveal yourself to others. So being a Christian, to me, it is so important that I reveal myself to people in a manner that is godly. There's 3 words that represent God to me. One is light, another is love, and another is Christ. So that light, that love, and that Christ, I want to reveal to people because I am not perfected. I am being perfected as I live. So as a Christian, I want to be the representative, an ambassador for God to people. And there's sometimes that I overstep my authority in my bounds. And that boundary, I move it out a little bit so that I can do what I want to do. But I suffer those consequences for doing so. But as a Christian, I chose to accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior and my master, my teacher. And so that's what a Christian is, one that is practicing the teachings of Jesus, not one that does them, but one that is practicing. It's amazing when you go to law school and get out of law school, you say, I'm practicing law. When you go to medical school, you get out of medical school, you say, I'm practicing medicine. When you go to the seminary and get out, you say, I'm a Christian. Whoa. So you're practicing, and you'll be practicing for the rest of your life. Anybody do law or medicine or science, they're going to practice for the rest of their life. And so that's who I am. I'm a practicing Christian that's following Jesus.
You know, I mean, that's no one has put it in that perspective, and I really want to thank you. And it's something really profound that we really need to think about, particularly as we come to a general understanding. Because I mean, we look at law, and you look at the medical field. In many aspects, is I wouldn't say concrete, but based on what is taught in school is sort of concrete. However, in Christianity, is something that we have to learn to see where we fit. You know, one has to understand itself first. You know, because you have to learn where you fit in the equation in order to be part of the equation. You got to know where you fit, and that's what you know, I think Christianity is. And as you figure out where you fit within the equation, you could express. You express.
You're talking to a guy with a GED. I have a PhD also, but man, don't be getting all deep on me about the equation. You know? Too deep.
I'm sorry.
Keep it at the 12th grade level, okay?
Okay. But I'm going to say well put and very clear, and I want to thank you for presenting that. And saying that, it says, do you believe that Christians and Muslims could coexist here in the United States? Why or why not?
Absolutely. You know, the difference is this. In Islam, the Muslim faith, Steve Muhammad is a friend of mine. Him and I, man, we spend a lot of time talking about the Bible. And I think he made me a very good Christian, and I believe I made him a very good Muslim. Now, he tells me that he's a Christian, he's a practicing Muslim, but he also believes in Christ.
Yes.
Now, I'm a Christian. I don't necessarily believe, I do not believe in the Islamic teaching. I do believe in some of the things they talk about, the dietary laws and so on. I think those are great things that can be added to one's life. And Muhammad turned out to be, to me, one of a great Muslim personally. But the question is, can we coexist together? Absolutely. We have different faiths in Christianity. We got the AME, we have the United, the Methodist, we have the Baptist, we have the Holiness, Pentecostal, the interdenominational. We got all types of denominations in Christianity. We coexist together, and there are things that we don't necessarily agree on together. For example, how you baptize, whether or not you got pre-trib. So my point is, we got things we don't necessarily agree on, but we coexist together. Islam or Muslim is the same as far as I'm concerned. We may not agree on, but we can coexist together.
You know, Soji Muhammad said there are two things in which you guys disagree. It mentioned that you guys argue often, but I think, if not mistaken, he said your wife had mentioned that, you know, why you guys are arguing is that you guys need to find out what you guys have in common and find out you have more in common than you have in disagreement. And it was only, once you guys looked at it, it was only two things in which you guys disagreed. And once you guys realized that, you know, there was laughter. You know?
Absolutely. In fact, my wife put him out the house, and I was so glad, because at the time when she put him out, I was losing the conversation. So she came in right on time and told him, Muhammad, it's time to go home. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm so glad. And I don't feel bad for him, because I won after that, because I knew I had time to think it over.
I guess did you buy your wife roses or flowers or a gift?
Oh, hey, I did not. I owe her something. Now that you brought it up, I'm going to go do it.
You know, amazing. How do you handle failure?
Say again.
How do you handle not achieving your goals, failure? If you do not achieve something, how do you handle it?
Well, you know, failure is necessary. If you don't fail, you haven't tried. Failure is necessary. Now, Muhammad has a saying. He says, there's no option. Failure is not an option in his life. And I understand that philosophy. But lights, Edison failed thousands of times before we had lights. And I go on naming great people that failed many times, but their failure was a stepping stone to their success. I have not won every tournament I've entered, but I have won over 85 major championships, including international world's karate champion. So I've been to the top, but also I've lost some matches. I fought at the sports arena in the Pro-Ams and took second place to John the Tividad. And John the Tividad beat me, and then Chuck Norris beat him. So my point is, but I don't consider that a failure.
Right.
I learned something from that, even though I did not complete the goal that I set out. I didn't fail. See, in life, I don't fail, I learn.
Right.
And when I use that term, learn instead of failure, because failure is when I give up and quit. So, but it's necessary in life for me to not achieve every time I set a goal, so that I can get stronger to make it next time. So, yes, how do I handle failure? By learning. That's how I handle it.
You know, it's oh, wow. You know, it was great because the next question I have what you just shared leads directly into, actually, you've answered the next question I'm going to ask, which is this. It says, I want to ask you, is often in elementary school today, when it comes to the competition, academics, and athletics, there's no losers. So students are taught that a loss is a win, that it is okay not to try your best or your hardest as long as you try. From your knowledge, you have always been a fierce competitor. What are your thoughts of such a change in philosophy, whereby all students are received a trophy? All students are told that they're winners.
Well, that is not the right way to do it in a competitive competition that everybody wins. Everybody do not win in a competitive competition. Now, if you're telling a child that they are great, they are winners, they are champions, they're good, that's a good teaching. But it's not good for them to enter into a legitimate, legal competition and come in 77 out of 100 and tell them they won, and here's a trophy for you winning. You did not win. You may not have lost. You may have gained from that. You may have learned from that, but you did not win. Let me explain that just briefly. See, I can be number one in number two spot. But if I didn't make the number one spot, I can't be number one in number one spot. I am number one in number two spot. And so I could teach my child that they can become number one in number two spot. But your goal is to be number one in number one spot. But don't lie to your kids or don't encourage them to believe something that will hinder their progress. You need to realize that if you do not accomplish the goal, continue and you will. So I don't believe that you should give every child a trophy because they showed up. But I think you should encourage them because they showed up.
Agreed. You know, it's oftentimes I look at it, when we're doing that, we're doing beta testing. And I'm going to tell you, based on the beta testing that I've seen, is you know, it's not working. It's not effective. And I agree with what you're saying, and the fact that, you know, if, we need to separate the true winners from those individuals who are not the true winners, and let the individuals know that they're not winners, and motivate them to become better. You know, and that's what makes us better individuals, as better people. You know, so thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
Exactly. When I look at you, you know, when I finished school, I ended up with a GED before I went to college. I got a GED, and yes, that is not the number one way everybody want to graduate, but I did okay. Now you went to college, you went to high school on into college. Well, see, you are an example to my kids. I don't want my kids to stop school like I did and go get a GED and then enter back into education. I want them to achieve the goal like you did. So I'm not going to celebrate them because they stopped and got a GED. I'm going to celebrate them when they continue to go on and get their PhD. So that's what I'm using as an example.
But understood. Please, please share your most memorable experience in the arts, and also share your most notable experience outside the arts.
In the arts, I was at the international tournament with Ed Parker in Long Beach in 1977. I was told by a white man that I cheated his student. And I was really really ridiculed and spoken to with such disrespect, but I was the tournament director. And so I told him, I said, he told me that if I was so good, that the reason I retired because I couldn't fight anymore. And so I told him, I'll fight. So I went and borrowed a gi, went in the bathroom, knelt down at the toilet and prayed. And I told God, I said, if you let me beat this guy, I will definitely serve you. And making a long story short, him and I ended up in the finals together. And I whooped him. And after I beat him, I did not go and serve God. I went and started doing movies and everything else and making money. But today I'm serving him, so I fulfilled that request, but it took years for it to go by. That's my most memorable moment in the martial arts. Now, your second question is what was the second one?
Sorry, share your most notable experience outside the arts.
The most notable experience outside the art is I married one of the most beautiful Mexican girls in the world. And we have some of the most beautiful children in the world. That is my achievement outside of the martial arts. When it comes to my personal life, not dealing with spirituality or my relationship with God, my wife has been my ultimate blessing.
That's an amen on that. You know, I tell people, you know what I tell people, this is so funny, is that, you know, I tell people I wear the pants in my house, but my wife owns the belt. I said, when a man realizes that, they're going to have a happy marriage.
Absolutely. Absolutely, well.
You know,
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, I don't have no problem. I forget who shared that with me many years ago. I didn't understand that, though, but I'm going to be honest. I don't have any problem sharing that. In fact, what I often share with my students is that, see, I love my wife. I share it to them. I said, but I love women. I said, I don't care if they're short, tall, green, blue, orange, whatever, as long as they don't stink.
There you go.
You know, I said, but I know my place. I said, it took me years to understand that. But once I acknowledged what I like, what I could do, you know, etc., that's when I became happy, man, because I was wondering, like, what in the heck, whatever. But I'm glad you brought that point up, but sharing that, you know, most notable moment, you know. Just have, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure I'm gonna remember what you said too. So if you see me without a belt on, I'm holding my britches up till I get to my wife. Okay.
That's right. You know, I always, you know, sometimes I double check with her very, very often. You know, what are your thoughts about this? And I often run things by her. What do you think? This is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to do. And
that's blessed.
You know, and so on, and just to hear, you know, and I don't know, that's just how I am. And by doing that, I tell you, I feel a lot more relaxed and at ease, and no games, etc. But yeah, tell me something. What has I only have a few questions, but what has martial arts taught you?
Well, three things that martial arts have given me knowledge in the area of. The first thing martial arts taught me is how to fight. I did not know how to fight, and so martial arts taught me how to fight. The second thing martial arts taught me, when to fight. A lot of people know how to fight, but they don't know when to fight. Every battle is not one to get involved in. The better I got in martial arts, the less altercations I had. Because as I grew in knowledge in fighting, I had very little altercations. And the third thing martial arts taught me, not only taught me how, not only taught me when, but I think the greatest part of arts that the arts taught me, and that is Donnie Williams, the will to fight. A lot of people have the ability and they have the knowledge, but they don't have the will to fight. Because it takes a strong will to kick somebody in their groin with the intent. Your intentions is to just corrupt them in their life. It takes a will to take your fingers and poke it in someone's eyes to blind them. You got to have the will to do that. Mm. You have to have the will to take your knuckles and try to punch someone in their throat to dismantle their vocal cords. It takes a will to do that. Some people have the ability and the knowledge, but they don't have the will. So you may know how and you may know when, but most of all, you have to have the will. Martial arts taught me that. And that's the thing I hold on to the most.
Right. And looking at the totality of your life experiences in and out of the arts, as you're reflecting, how do you define a martial artist? And also, how do you find a grandmaster? And also, what advice would you give people like me and others who are trying to walk in your footsteps?
Well, number one, a white belt is where you begin. In the olden days, it turned black. Today, they have different colors that will end up being black. From white belt to black belt is compatible to high school. When you get your black belt, you are now eligible to go to college. From your first degree to your fifth degree is like going 4 years of college to get a master's. You get a bachelor's, 4 years, and you get your master's. So your fifth degree is your master's. After you get out of school and you do your study, graduate study, you may do your doctoral study or whatever it might be, and now you reach for your PhD, your doctorate in your study. That's a grandmaster. Now, a senior grandmaster is one that developed his own system, his own style, and take what he have learned, develop it, and create his own system and teach it to somebody else. A grandmaster is one that have 20 or more years in the art. You can't be a grandmaster with less than 20 years in the art. A fifth degree black belt must have a minimum of 15 years in the art. A black belt cannot get a black belt under 5 years. So that's how you compare it and look at what the comparison of the rank and the grandmaster and who they are. And the people today, and if anyone want to walk behind a Chuck Norris, a Steve Muhammad, a Byung Yu, or any of these great names, and look at their lives, they all accomplish something that is really important. Chuck Norris happened to be an actor and so on, but he also had problems with his hip. He had to have 2 hip surgeries. And all masters go through some suffering. So if you want to be at the top, remember this. You're going to do some suffering. Just prepare to handle the suffering when it comes your way. That's how you walk behind the masters.
Thanks for sharing that. And I, what I'm doing is taking that knowledge in what you just piece of knowledge in what you just shared, And hopefully individuals will take this information and learn from you, Soji Muhammad, Nima Hassan, uh, Grandmaster McKetty, Coach Keating, and many, many, many more, because many of these guys have had injuries, minor injuries, some major injuries. And I've been very blessed in which I haven't really had a major, major injury. But it's due to the fact that, say, my 30 years of training in the arts, that I've learned from these individuals and learned how to, just like many years ago, I was doing I was invited, I was always invited as a master instructor to come up to the Wagey camp up in Boston to be a master instructor. And one thing I remember that Joe Lewis had shared is that he says, when you're stretching, sit down and do your stretching, and explain why, and through his experience, he was able to share why we should focus on stretching while we're on the ground, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's good information, just like what he shared and what you're sharing, that is going to help the young men and women coming up to be good martial artists. And again, I just want to thank you, and it's an honor to look at you and many others and coming up in your footstep has been a guy of my own system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in saying that, what is your latest project? I know you did share that with Master P, you were doing some things.
Yeah, I just did that one project with him. I don't know if I'll be on any more, and if so, it'll come to pass. But now my ultimate goal is that I'm going to produce videos. I'll produce. My son have a production company, and so do I. And he has a big studio, a 30,000 square foot facility that he have a recording studio and stage and all of that on. That's his, not mine, but still my objective is to become a great producer in records, videos, and movies. That's what I'm going to do in the next year.
I wish you success. I mean, both of you guys are success with that, and I'm eager to see the results. I'm confident with your diligence that you guys will do a very good job.
I appreciate that. Thank you for those kind words too.
Thank you. If someone wanted to get in contact with you, what is the best method to do so? Is there an email or your website, or what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, they can contact me by email, and the email is DW as in Donnie Williams Productions with an S 1 at yahoo.com. Again, that's DW Productions 1 at yahoo.com. Or they can just contact me through the Family Church, thefamilychurch.com, which is in the city of Pasadena. Or they can call this number, which is 626-797-6633. That is 626-797-6633, and they can reach me direct.
Thank you for sharing that information, and I'm confident that our audience will be in contact with you because you have a wealth of knowledge. We're pretty much, sir, come to the close. Are there any last words you like to share?
Yes. First, again, let me end by saying thank you for your polite conduct and attitude and encouraging words after things that are said. I appreciate that from you. It wasn't a challenge or a struggle to speak to you. You make it very comfortable to talk to. I want to say that to you first. The last thing I want to say is I'm a pastor and a bishop of a ministry, the Family Church in the city of Pasadena. If any listeners listen and within the area, I would love for them to come by and visit my church. And also, I am on KJLH FM 102.3. That's Stevie Wonder's radio network here in LA. And I come on every Sunday night at 9 to 10 on that radio network. If you can't get it on your radio, go to the internet, just KJLH FM 102.3 radio. And so those are my final statements. You're free to contact me or come see me. And I love what I do, and I love God so much. Thank you, sir.
And Grandmaster Williams, I really thank you very, very much. Well, you've heard it on martialartsnow.com. I'm Pedro Bennett, the founder of martialartsnow.com, and you just heard it from Grandmaster Donnie Williams. Stay tuned, and we'll be back.